Here's a few of the things that we are seeing from reports with him. He prefers to play a 3-4-3. He's got a track record with making players better, especially youngsters, with helping them out there. How is that going to set up with a Manchester United side, this Manchester United side, that he would be inheriting?
Well, one or two of the Man United youngsters are already playing better, like Garnacho. And then who was the young boy playing midfield?
Mena.
Who had been in for a bit. The problem at United is not actually the youngsters, it's the more experienced players. They're the big problem. And how do you get a tune out of Marcus Rashford on a consistent basis? How do you get the right temperament and raise the talent consistency of Bruno Fernandes? We saw Casemiro play really well tonight against this Leicester team, but we know he can't do it these days over a long season in the Premier League. Agathe's still to prove himself since signing, and quite frankly, Matthias de Ligt has looked exactly like he looked at Bayern, if not worse, since he's come in. Luke Shaw's got all these injury issues. He's a very, very good left back, but can never stay fit. The other left back, Malacia, who's come in from Holland, he's also got his injury problems. So there's all these things you've got to deal with, and they're all problems that have materialised through the previous manager. When people say this was not Erik Ten Hag's team, that's nonsense. Nonsense. Most of it was. Not every manager comes in and gets 15 of their new players, but most of it were his players. So that's a big issue for the new guy coming in. And they've let this seep and rot for so long. What are they sitting now? 14th in the Premier League? 14th. It's taken them to sit in 14th before they've embarrassed themselves into making this decision. And now that mountain is even taller and bigger and steeper for them to climb. I mean, it's just... Which is why we all sat around when they were playing in the semi-final, when they were playing in the final, and we said, look, this is great. Winning an FA Cup, beating Man City, this is all great. But come on, guys, big picture here for this football club going forward. It's not appeasing the fans short term. You know, the blinkered ones that can only see a cup final win, can't see anything else. Erik this, Erik that. The big picture was there. He had to go in the summer. And now it's become such a much more difficult job because they've left it 6 more months, and it's been 6 more months of rot.
200 million,
and more money and more financial sustainability and profit and all these things that they have to adhere to. And what do you think the players are going to do? Oh, yeah, I'll go. No, they're not. They're going to say, oh, I'm on 150 grand a week. I'm on 200 grand a week. Casemiro's got another 2 or 3 years left in his contract. They're not going to go anywhere unless they're compensated.
And Stevie makes a good point. I think this is... Now we see what INEOS was brought in for. Listen, Ten Hag preceded INEOS and their involvement and their investment. Maybe you can question some of the decisions over the summer. You can question, but let's give them a pass in that as they try to...
But one second, how can you give them a pass?
No.
How can you bring more players in to work under this manager and then get rid of them?
You hear me out. All I'm saying is they're trying to get the structure of the club right. Again, I question all those signings. I'm with you on that, Craig. But if I'm being very pro-INEOS here, I'm saying, OK, you're trying to get the right backroom staff in, the director of football and everything else in. And to that point, you think about Amorim as manager of Manchester City, it doesn't faze you at all. You feel that may be a fairly seamless transition because of what is going on, because of the infrastructure of that football club, which Manchester United, by all appearance, does not have. And that's a concern with Amorim coming in to Manchester United. Are they set up in a way that gets the best out of him? Because, and Jan made this point yesterday, Ten Hag had a pretty similar CV, albeit in the Eredivisie, to Amorim. And you look at how Ajax have capitulated since he left. Yet you look at his performances as manager for Manchester United, and there is nothing to cling to. But again, that was pre-INEOS. So now again, I'm being very pro-INEOS here. You start with a clean slate, with your backroom, with your structure, your infrastructure behind the manager. This is on you now. And there's no hiding. There's no hiding from what you were brought in to do. So let's see where they go from here. But also to Craig's point, you're starting almost from a deficit in that You have a number of players that I'm not sure work. I'm not sure are good enough for where Manchester, good enough for 14th, certainly, but not good enough for a top 4 push. How do you address that in a way that, again, financially feasible, given some of the restrictions and some of the salaries that those players are on?
Mazraoui, De Ligt, Zirkzee, oh my God, Ugarte. Why? Why bother? If you're going to sack him, and you know you were, why bother? Why waste the money? Why tie yourself to these players? It's not like De Ligt, his career was heading up the way. It just wasn't.
Surely you'd have to take from that INEOS was behind those players coming in. Because if they're not, it makes them look even worse. That they've kept a manager who's had an absolute disastrous time in his 2 years previously. You've kept him for some reason, and then you've let him bring in players. So if that's the case, why would things get so much better under this INEOS? Because if that's the decision they've made, to let him go and get more players, a guy who shouldn't be there in the first place, then surely the odds of them actually succeeding eventually have got to be pretty slim, isn't
These players he's worked with, most of them, if not all, these players these players are known to him. So you've got to think that they've said, do you want him? Do you want him? They had to been still conversing with the manager that they knew was a dead man walking, right? And yet they still went out and spent a couple of $100 million or whatever it was and tied people to big wages. And now the new manager has to come in and go, sit down with Dan Ashworth and Jason Wilcox and Omar Baradi and Sir Dave Brailsford, who knows how to run a cycling team, by the way, Olympic cycling team, but what's that got to do with a game of football? I don't know. And say, I don't want him and I don't want him. Look, this is not picking on Man United. This is common sense. Yeah. This is just common sense in the summer from business people that I think should have known better. INEOS and all the cronies that go with them.
So if he comes in, where does he start?
No, I think he'll get a better tune out of these players than what Ten Hag got. I mean, they were all mailing it in the end because they knew the manager was getting the sack. But they're not going to get up in amongst. They're not going to bring a coach in. You could have brought Klopp and Guardiola in, right? Both of them. One's manager, one's the assistant. They're still not getting amongst Liverpool, Arsenal, and Man City.